What's going on, my MTG family? I have a Gonti deck tech for you today. Hope you enjoy it. Hope you get value from it. Share your opinions, share your ideas, and don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, all that good stuff. If you enjoyed the video, I have my socials in the description. Going to be doing a lot more of these videos. Check out the socials. I make MTG memes and building a community on Instagram and TikTok. So it's really fun if you want a good laugh. And let's hop right into it. What's up, my MTG fam? If you are here, it's because you like to steal your opponent's things. Yes, if you are here, it's because you want to see a Gonti deck. So here's a little Gonti deck tech. First things first, I'll mention ignore the price tag on the website when I give you the link. It's architect.com. I find that this website, it's amazing, by the way, but for some reason the pricing is really outdated, so they don't really sync properly. You know, I found cards that are, for example, $2 and it still says that it's $8 or whatnot. So that's first thing. And second thing is that this is not an extremely competitive list, but it's obviously much stronger than a precon. So if you're somewhere there in the middle, just looking to update the precon with a couple of cards, this is a really great option for you. This is basically what I've done to the deck, and it's performed really well. Has some really good synergy. Point of the deck is essentially to take your opponent's stuff, which is pseudo card draw. You know, basically, even if the deck didn't draw cards, you're drawing cards in the form of taking your opponent's stuff, because you can just cast it later on with Gonti's ability. So that's really nice. And besides that point, I've built the deck in order to be able to draw a lot of cards, tons of cards. I'll show you the enchantments, artifacts that I have, and then just overall creatures that, you know, give you the ability to draw a lot of cards overall. So let's start with the sideboard here, jumping right into things. You'll see that there's 39 cards. These are essentially all the cards that I've taken out in the form of lands and some other cards that just didn't necessarily synergize with the deck well, at least in my opinion, or just some cards that had better replacements, or just cards that cost too much and I didn't necessarily want to play them, and just wanted to stay a little lower to the ground. So that's that. Moving on to the commander, obviously you guys are very familiar with what Gonti does. One of the things that I want to call out that might be understood by perhaps new players is that it's whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player. So you could have, for example, two creatures attacking, one of them attacking player A, one of them attacking player B, and you will get the ability off of this twice from each of their libraries. So just keep that in mind. The more creatures, the merrier. However, if you are attacking two creatures at one opponent, you only get the ability once, because it's whenever one or more creatures, but it is to a player. So just keep that in mind. And let's go into the artifacts here. So we are playing our Almighty Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, you know, just our rocks, our two talismans, our Thought Vessel, because we want no maximum hand size. And then hopping into these very important artifacts here, our Bident of Thassa is basically whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. Now, I am playing 4 cards that essentially do the same thing in the form of Bident of Thassa, the Indomitable, Coastal Piracy, and then the Mission. And all of them are a little different in the sense that this one cycles, so it's better than Coastal Piracy. This one's an actual vehicle. This last ability here, where you'll be able to cast it from the graveyard, will never actually happen, because I'll never have 3 or more tap pirates or vehicles. This is the only vehicle I actually play in the deck. So the reason for playing 4 of these effects is, you know, pretty obvious, right? I want my chances of drawing it to be really high. So when you play creatures turns 2 to 3 or 1 to 3 really low to the ground, and then you slap this on the board, you're going to be drawing tons of cards. So this feels really nice to draw. Going over our instants, you know, we have some staples, an offer you can't refuse, Arcane Denial, we are playing Cyclonic Rift, Negate, Fierce Guardianship, and Baleful Mastery. A lot of these cards are already in the precon, for example this one, and you'll find that throughout the whole deck tech that there's going to be a lot of cards that did stay, despite the amount that you see that went out here. But yeah, so for example, negate, as I mentioned at the top of the video, you know, we could be playing something like Force of Will, right, or Pact of Negation, but we try to keep it somewhat budget friendly. You know, it's not fully optimized, so just keep that in mind as we go through the video. As far as our lands, we're playing 34. We did include all the fetches and the shocks and all the bond lands, so the lands that are 2 or more opponents come in untapped, and just a couple of other things like Reliquary Tower. Actually, that was already in the deck, I believe. Yep. So yeah, I took out everything that just wasn't consistent, right? I don't like lands that come in tapped and have, you know, some conditions to them. I do still play some that have conditions, for example these, but these are much easier to pull off. So that's one of my pet peeves, is having my lands come in tapped. So maybe that's just a me thing, you know, you don't have to upgrade to all these shocks and fetches. Obviously take everything here with a grain of salt. So going into our creatures, this is our most important section basically. Our creatures are going to give us the ability to get in for damage no matter what. Why? Because they are unblockable. A lot of them, 90% of them. So granted that you know, they don't kill it, it is going to get in, and if you have Gonti out, it is going to put in work. So besides the fact that if you have these enchantments or artifacts out, they're going to get in and draw you cards, I also have a lot of creatures, obviously, in the form of Cold Ice Zelki. When it deals combat damage, you draw a card. Edric, whenever a creature deals combat damage to your opponents, its controller may draw a card. Same thing with Gix, same thing with Grazalax, same thing with Talski, okay? Same thing with Oran Frostfang, which is already in the deck. So you're starting to notice a lot of these effects in the deck. Basically, I want to be drawing a lot of cards with my creatures connecting. Why? Because a lot of my creatures are not necessarily going to be on blocking duty. So we have to keep in mind that we're not going to be the most defensive deck. So we gotta hold our own fort down in the form of drawing a lot of drawing a lot of cards, and drawing essentially a lot of their cards, or exiling off the top of the library with the ability to play them later on. So besides the fact that Gonti has that ability, there's other creatures in the deck, obviously, that have this ability, such as Nightveil Spectre and some others that you know, I won't necessarily get into, but yeah, you see Gonti here. Just a lot of these creatures have the same effect. So let's go through all the creatures real quick so you get a sense of everything. All the drops can be blocked. Triton Shorestalker, Baleful Strix, Plated Agent. Infect is not relevant, just the unblockable is necessary. Then we have the Demir Infiltrator. It has Transmute, which is really nice to fetch 3 mana things out of our deck, such as a Toxic Deluge, which we do play. So it's basically a tutor for any other 3 CMC card that you have, maybe a Fierce Guardianship you want to get, things of that nature. We have Inkfathom Infiltrator, Invisible Stalker. The thing I really like about Invisible Stalker is that it has hexproof, and if we play something like, I'll go ahead of myself here, like Arcane Heist, which has Cypher, you're able to slap that onto the Invisible Stalker and basically continuously get that effect, because he's also unblockable, which is really nice. So it makes him hard to kill because he has hexproof. Essentially, you know, board wipe is what's needed to get rid of him, or, you know, something else. Moving on here, we play Mercurial Spelldancer. I really like this card because when you take those oil counters out, if you're casting things like Breach the Multiverse, you're going to get a copy of it, which is insane, or anything else that really has a strong effect like Extract Brain. So those effects are really nice when you're able to duplicate them, right? Thieving Skydivers, a really nice card to steal Soul Rings and such. We have a Thieving Varmint. It's in the precon. You know what it does. Lets you cast things for cheaper as long as they're not yours. Tower Winder. I really like his stats as well as the Varmint because it's Death Touch. This guy is Reach and Death Touch, so we can leave him on blocking duty. You know, threaten to block your opponent's biggest things. And essentially he gets you a command tower, right? So it's basically ramp. I showed you the Edric, Gix, Grazalax, Kite Sail Larcenist is gonna let you take your opponent's things, make them into treasures as long as you have them out. We have your Nashi in the precon again. Again, when this deals combat damage, you draw cards. Thief of Sanity gives you basically a Gonti-like ability. Then we have the Trigon, blows up artifacts and enchantments. We have this guy that puts counters. We have Atrada. We have a Grima, can be blocked. And then you look at the top of their library until they exile an instant or sorcery card. You could cast it without paying its mana cost. Really awesome card. And it gets in, unblockable. Hostage Taker, we know this guy. Notion Thief, we know this guy. Dazzling Sphinx, I left them in there even though it costs 5 mana. I think it's really solid because it also lets you cast things without paying its mana cost off the top of their library. So really nice. Fallen Shinobi is really an MVP. One of your guys gets in, you bring them back with ninjutsu, slap this on, exile the top. You could play one of those without paying their mana cost. So a lot of these effects that let you play things without paying their mana cost, which is really insane if you think about it. Like if you get things like a Crater Hoof, Behemoth off of their top, you get a Breach the multiverse off the top, or you get like anything that's really highly costed and really effective in Commander, you're gonna get to play for free if this connects. Granted that it's on top of their library. Felix 5 Boots is a huge MVP of the deck. I really recommend you obviously keep them in the deck. Anytime your creatures are drawing cards, or anytime you're getting these effects from Fallen Shinobi and things of this nature, you're going to trigger it an additional time. Okay, really great card. Probably second to best after Gonti in the card in terms of creatures. Then we play our Oran Frostfang. It's basically a Toski. Spelljacker, I kept them in. Really like the effect, how you get to exile a target spell. It doesn't necessarily have to counter it. It's nice that it just exiles it on the stack. So things that are uncounterable don't matter, right? And then you can play it without paying its mana cost when he attacks. So really sweet card, really nice stats, flash, flying, 3/3. Okay, we have our Orochi. This is one of my favorite ninjutsu cards. If I attack an opponent with a creature and another opponent with another creature, and they get in for damage, which most likely they will, I could make treasures for each one player that it hits and then manifest the top card of their library. So really solid card, really cheap. Ninjutsu 4 is super solid in my opinion. Brainstealer Dragon, I left them in there, sort of like a bomb-esque type creature. It's not necessarily the craziest thing, but I really like his effect at the end step, how you exile the top card of each opponent's library. And then whenever you do cast it later on in the game, they lose life equal to its mana value. So it could be devastating if you're casting something very expensive. The Blade Oni, kept them in as well. Again, this effect that keeps coming up. You may cast a spell from among those cards without paying its mana cost. It's man, like honestly, this deck, if you're here, it's because you really like this ability. And this ability, man, it gets me riled up because it's so great being able to take your opponent's stuff. Like last week I was playing and my opponent tried to demonic tutor for something, and then he kept looking through his deck. He couldn't find it until he realized that I probably had it, and he just looks over at me and I give him a nice smirk. So it's like these situations that you really don't think you know until you play the deck, but it's funny. Planeswalker Kaito Shizuki. Again, our creatures always usually get in for damage, so it's basically a +1 draw card. You won't really have to ever discard. And then it makes little ninjas that can be blocked, so it's really nice. And then obviously if we ever get to that emblem, this is a beautiful ability, right? Whenever it deals combat damage, you get to tutor and slap something onto the battlefield. So any black or blue creature, such as a Silent Blade, a Brainstealer, a Orochi, anything that's blue or black, which we don't have immense bombs, but you know it's something that's relevant. So going on to our sorceries, we have Curse of the Swine, Demonic Tutor. This is probably one of the most expensive cards in the deck. Obviously, you don't need this art. This sort of visual here representation of my deck is the cards that I have and the ones that I swap in, the arts that I like, etc. But Demonic Tutor and Fierce Guardianship are probably going to be the most expensive cards in the deck. Other than that, perhaps Cyclonic Rifts, which are like $23. You see how it says $44 there. I think even this version is not $44. It's super outdated pricing. Moving on to Extract Brain. This is in the precon. I really like this card, man. When they're running low on cards and you could pay 3 for this, they have 3 cards. You could pick basically any card from their hand and play for free if they were saving that huge bomb, right? Like again, things like a Breach, things like Craterhut Behemoth, like just crazy wall cards. Nature's Lore, I swapped in this and I took out the Rampant Growth. Just a lot more reliable, and it's basically a copy of 3 visits. We have our Toxic Deluge, Villainous Wealth we left in there, Arcane Heist, which I discussed earlier, Stolen Goods, another really solid card I like. You get to cast things without paying their mana cost. And then a Breach. So that's the deck. This seems to be something that I put in and I took out after, but it's not part of the precon. But that's the deck, guys. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it. Really quick, straight to the point. I've been having a lot of fun with this deck. If you guys enjoyed the video, please, I would love if you could leave a like, comment, share, etc., subscribe, all that good stuff. And I'm going to keep coming out with these deck techs, sharing some ideas. The point of this is just to share ideas with the community. I welcome all feedback. Tell me what you guys are playing if you upgraded your Gonti decks. Tell me what you recommend, what other cards you think that would really slide in here pretty easily. Pause. But yeah, let me know. I hope you guys have a beautiful day, night, wherever you are in the world. And until the next one, my MTG family, peace and love.